War history is filled with battles that changed the world and stories that refuse to fade with time. Cinema has tried for decades to capture those moments of courage, fear, sacrifice, and strategy. In this countdown, we explore 13 military history films that bring the past to life with unforgettable power. Each one reveals how real events shape the lives of soldiers and the fate of nations. Paths of Glory. 1957. War movies often celebrate courage. Stanley Kubrick chose a darker truth. Paths of Glory tells the story of soldiers trapped inside the cruel machinery of World War I. The film follows Colonel Dax, played by Kirk Douglas. His men are ordered to attack a German position called the Ant Hill. The mission is impossible. The battlefield is a nightmare of mud, barbed wire, and machine gun fire. When the attack collapses, the French High Command refuses to accept failure. Instead, they search for scapegoats. 3 innocent soldiers are chosen to stand trial for cowardice. What follows is one of the most chilling courtroom scenes in film history. Kubrick exposes how pride and politics can destroy human lives during war. The film shocked audiences in the late 1950s. Several countries banned it for years because its portrayal of military leadership was considered dangerous. Today, it is praised as one of the most powerful anti-war films ever made. It reminds viewers that history is not always written by heroes. Sometimes it is written by those who survived injustice. Zulu, 1964. The year is 1879. A tiny British outpost in South Africa faces a force that seems impossible to defeat. Zulu tells the story of the legendary Battle of Rorke's Drift. Just over 100 British soldiers must defend their station against thousands of Zulu warriors advancing across the hills. The film captures the tension of isolation better than almost any war movie ever made. There are no reinforcements, no escape routes, only discipline and courage standing between survival and destruction. The defenders build barricades from meal sacks and wagons while the Zulu army gathers outside the mission station. Michael Caine appears in his first major role as Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead. Alongside him, Stanley Baker plays the calm and determined Lieutenant John Chard. Ringed together, they organize a defense that becomes one of the most famous last stands in military history. What makes Zulu unforgettable is the respect it shows for both sides. The Zulu warriors are portrayed with dignity and bravery. Their war chants echo across the battlefield, creating a sense of awe rather than hatred. The result is a film that feels less like propaganda and more like a tribute to courage on both sides. Tora, Tora, Tora. 1970. Few war films attempt to show history from both sides of a battlefield. Tora, Tora, Tora does exactly that. The film recreates the attack on Pearl Harbor with extraordinary attention to detail. American and Japanese filmmakers work together to tell the story from 2 perspectives that collide in tragedy. On the Japanese side, we see Admiral Yamamoto and the officers planning the surprise assault. They understand that striking Pearl Harbor may wake a giant that cannot be defeated. Yet the mission moves forward with precise military discipline. Across the ocean, American commanders remain unaware of the danger approaching Hawaii. Communication failures and misplaced confidence leave the Pacific Fleet vulnerable. The audience watches the disaster slowly unfold long before the first bomb falls. When the attack begins, the film transforms into a terrifying spectacle of chaos. Aircraft roar over the harbor while battleships explode in flames. Unlike many war films, there are no heroic speeches during the destruction, only shock, confusion, and disbelief. Tora, Tora, Tora remains one of the most historically accurate depictions of Pearl Harbor ever filmed. It shows how small mistakes and underestimated warnings can change the course of world history. Gettysburg, 1993. The American Civil War produced many legends, but few battles shaped history like Gettysburg. The film, Gettysburg, recreates that turning point with remarkable dedication to historical detail. Based on Michael Shara's novel, The Killer Angels, the movie unfolds across 3 brutal days in July 1863 when Union and Confederate forces clashed in Pennsylvania. Rather than focusing on a single hero, the film shows the battle through several commanders whose decisions carry enormous weight. Union officer Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain understands that holding the high ground at Little Round Top could determine the fate of the entire army. Confederate General Robert E. Lee believes one decisive strike can shatter the Union defense. The film takes its time to show the strategy behind the violence. Soldiers march across open fields knowing many will never return. Officers debate tactics while artillery echoes in the distance. This slower pace gives the audience time to feel the scale of the conflict. One of the most unforgettable moments arrives with Pickett's charge. Thousands of Confederate soldiers advance across an open field toward Union cannons. It is a moment filled with courage, tragedy, and inevitability. Gettysburg stands apart because of its respect for the men who fought on both sides. The movie avoids simple hero worship and instead shows soldiers as human beings caught inside a massive historical storm. When the smoke clears, the battle has changed the direction of the entire war. The Battle of Algiers, 1966. Some war films are designed to entertain. The Battle of Algiers was created to confront reality. Directed by Gillo Pontecorvo, this powerful film reconstructs the Algerian struggle for independence from French colonial rule during the 1950s. Shot in a documentary style, the film feels almost like secret footage from the conflict itself. Handheld cameras follow fighters through crowded streets, narrow alleys, and tense checkpoints. The realism is so convincing that many viewers once believed they were watching actual historical recordings. The story centers on Ali Lapointe, a young Algerian who joins the National Liberation Front. Through his journey, the audience witnesses how rebellion grows inside an occupied city. Bombings, assassinations, and counterattacks slowly transform Algiers into a battlefield. At the same time, the film examines the French military response led by Colonel Mathieu. His forces use intelligence networks, interrogation tactics, and ruthless counterinsurgency strategies to dismantle the resistance movement. The film refuses to portray either side as purely heroic or purely villainous. Instead, it presents a chilling truth about modern warfare. Victory often depends not only on armies, but on the control of fear information and public perception. The Battle of Algiers became required viewing in military academies around the world because of its accurate depiction of urban insurgency. Even decades after its release, the film remains deeply unsettling. It shows that wars of independence are rarely clean or simple. They are fought inside cities, homes, and human conscience. Das Boot, 1981. War at sea often appears heroic on screen. Das Boot removes every trace of glamour and replaces it with suffocating realism. The film follows the crew of a German U-boat during World War II as they patrol the deadly waters of the Atlantic Ocean. Inside, the submarine space is painfully tight. Metal pipes crowd every wall. The air grows heavy with sweat fuel and fear. Sailors squeeze through narrow corridors while depth charges explode somewhere above them. Each mission becomes a test of endurance rather than glory. The story is told through the eyes of a young war correspondent assigned to the submarine. At first, he expects adventure and patriotic triumph. Instead, he witnesses exhaustion, boredom, and the quiet terror that spreads whenever enemy destroyers appear on the sonar screen. Captain Lehman Willenbrock commands the vessel with calm intelligence, yet even he understands how fragile their survival truly is. One mistake or one lucky enemy strike could send the submarine and its crew to the bottom of the ocean. What makes Das Boot extraordinary is its focus on humanity rather than ideology. The sailors are not portrayed as villains despite serving Nazi Germany. They are ordinary men trapped inside a brutal war they did not create. As the patrol drags on, hope slowly fades. Mechanical failures, storms, and relentless Allied hunters push the crew to their limits. By the time the submarine finally reaches port, the audience understands a painful truth. Survival itself has become the only victory that matters. A bridge too far. 1977. In September 1944, the Allied armies believed victory in Europe might arrive sooner than anyone expected. The plan was bold. Some called it brilliant. Others feared it was reckless. Operation Market Garden aimed to end the war by launching the largest airborne assault in history. A Bridge Too Far tells the story of that gamble. thousands of paratroopers descend into the Netherlands with one objective: capture a chain of strategic bridges before German forces can react. If the plan succeeds, Allied tanks will drive straight into the heart of Germany. The film unfolds like a massive military chess match. British, American, and Polish troops land behind enemy lines while armored divisions race to reach them. Commanders struggle with broken radio signals, confusing intelligence, and rapidly changing battlefield conditions. At first, the operation appears successful. Several bridges fall quickly into Allied hands, yet one target proves far more dangerous than expected. The bridge at Arnhem lies deep inside territory where powerful German units are quietly regrouping. Soon, the paratroopers defending the town realize they are isolated. Supplies run low. Reinforcements cannot reach them in time. Street by street, the battle turns into a desperate fight for survival. In the strength of a bridge too far lies in its enormous cast and its refusal to simplify the tragedy. Famous actors portray real commanders whose decisions shaped the outcome. Each perspective reveals how fragile even the most ambitious strategy can be. The film ends with a haunting realization. Operation Market Garden failed not because soldiers lacked courage, but because war rarely obeys perfect plans. Sometimes a single bridge truly is too far. Black Hawk Down. 2001. Modern warfare rarely looks like the grand battles of history. Instead, it unfolds inside crowded cities where confusion and danger exist on every street. Black Hawk Down captures one of the most intense urban battles ever faced by American soldiers. The film recreates the events of October 1993 in Mogadishu, Somalia. United States forces launch a mission to capture key lieutenants of a powerful warlord. The plan seems straightforward. Helicopters insert elite Rangers and Delta Force operators into the city. The target should be secured within minutes. Then everything goes wrong. Somali fighters quickly surround the American troops. Rocket-propelled grenades strike two Black Hawk helicopters, sending them crashing into hostile territory. Suddenly, the mission changes from arrest operation to desperate rescue. What follows is a relentless fight through narrow streets and shattered buildings. Soldiers must navigate unfamiliar terrain while enemy fighters attack from every direction. Ammunition begins to run low. Communication becomes chaotic. Every decision carries life or death consequences. Ridley Scott directs the battle with almost documentary intensity. The audience experiences the exhaustion, fear, and loyalty that bind soldiers together in combat. Individual acts of bravery emerge in moments when survival seems impossible. One of the most powerful aspects of the film is its focus on teamwork. Rangers, medics, pilots, and special operators all rely on each other as the night battle grows more dangerous. The mission eventually becomes a struggle simply to bring every soldier home. Black Hawk Down reminds viewers that modern war is rarely clean or predictable. It is a test of courage under pressure where the smallest decision can change everything. Patton, 1970. Few military figures inspire as much fascination as General George S. Patton. A brilliant strategist, fearless commander, and controversial personality, Patton remains one of the most complex leaders of World War II. The film Patton attempts to capture that extraordinary character. The movie opens with one of the most famous speeches in cinema history. Patton stands before a massive American flag and addresses his soldiers with fierce determination. He tells them war demands aggression, discipline, and victory at any cost. George C. Scott delivers a legendary performance that earned him an Academy Award. His portrayal reveals both the brilliance and the flaws of the general. Patton is a man who believes deeply in destiny. He studies ancient battles and imagines himself as a warrior reborn from earlier centuries. The film follows Patton through key campaigns in North Africa and Europe. His rapid advances against German forces demonstrate an instinct for maneuver warfare that few commanders could match. Tanks sweep across deserts while Allied armies struggle to keep pace with his ambition. Yet Patton's greatest enemy is often his own personality. His outspoken remarks and strict discipline repeatedly bring him into conflict with political leaders and fellow officers. At times, his passion for victory pushes him dangerously close to controversy. The film does not hide these contradictions. Instead, it presents Patton as a man shaped by war itself. He understands the brutal logic of battle better than most, but struggles to adapt to the complicated world of diplomacy. By the end, the audience realizes that Patton was both hero and puzzle. A commander whose brilliance helped defeat Nazi Germany, yet whose restless spirit never fully found peace beyond the battlefield. Saving Private Ryan, 1998. The morning of June 6, 1944, begins with thunder from the sea. Allied landing craft move toward the beaches of Normandy while German defenses wait on the cliffs above. Saving Private Ryan opens with a sequence that changed the way war is shown on screen. The D-Day landing at Omaha Beach explodes into chaos the moment the first ramp drops. Bullets rip through the water. Soldiers struggle across the sand while explosions shake the shoreline. The scene is brutal and disorienting because that is exactly how combat felt to the men who survived it. As director Steven Spielberg wanted viewers to experience the terror rather than observe it from a safe distance. After the invasion, Captain John Miller receives an unusual mission. Somewhere behind enemy lines, a paratrooper named James Ryan has lost 3 brothers during the war. Military command decides the last surviving son must be brought home alive. Miller and his squad are ordered to find him inside occupied France. The search becomes a journey through shattered villages and dangerous countryside. Along the way, the soldiers question whether risking several lives to save one man makes sense. Each member of the squad carries his own fears, memories, and doubts. Saving Private Ryan stands out because it treats war as a human experience rather than a heroic spectacle. The film shows the bond that forms between soldiers who rely on one another for survival. Courage appears in quiet moments as much as in battle. When the mission finally reaches its destination, the audience understands the cost of every step taken to reach that point. The film leaves a lasting question about sacrifice and the meaning of duty. The Longest Day, 1962. D-Day remains one of the most important military operations in modern history. The Longest Day recreates that event on a scale rarely attempted in cinema. Instead of focusing on a single group of soldiers, the film presents the invasion from many perspectives across both Allied and German forces. The story begins with careful preparation. Paratroopers gather in English airfields while naval fleets assemble along the coast. Commanders study weather reports that could determine whether the operation succeeds or fails. Across the Channel, German officers debate whether the invasion will happen at all. Once the assault begins, the film expands into a vast portrait of war. American, British, and Canadian troops storm the beaches while airborne units land behind enemy lines. Every location reveals another piece of the immense operation unfolding across Normandy. One strength of The Longest Day is its dedication to authenticity. Many actors portraying soldiers had served during the war themselves. Military advisors ensured equipment, tactics, and dialogue reflected the reality of 1944. This commitment gives the film a documentary-like quality. The narrative moves constantly between viewpoints. A German officer studies the horizon searching for enemy ships. A group of paratroopers struggles to regroup after landing far from their intended drop zone. Commanders in distant headquarters attempt to understand the confusing reports arriving from the battlefield. By showing so many perspectives, the film captures the enormous complexity of the invasion. No single hero wins the day. Victory emerges from thousands of individual actions taking place across land, sea, and air. The Longest Day remains one of the most ambitious historical war films ever made. It reminds audiences that history is shaped by collective effort rather than a single moment of glory. Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006. The Battle of Iwo Jima became one of the most intense confrontations of the Second World War. Letters from Iwo Jima approaches the story from a perspective rarely seen in war cinema. The film tells the battle through the eyes of the Japanese soldiers defending the island. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi commands the defense. He understands the American invasion will eventually overpower his forces. Instead of preparing a traditional beach defense, he orders his troops to build a network of underground tunnels and hidden artillery positions across the volcanic terrain. The soldiers who follow him come from from different backgrounds. Some are professional officers, while others are young recruits who have never seen combat. Through their conversations, the audience witnesses fear, hope, and loyalty growing inside the underground fortress. Clint Eastwood directs the story with remarkable restraint. While the enemy is never portrayed as a faceless force, American soldiers appear mainly through distant explosions and advancing lines. The focus remains on the men waiting inside the tunnels, knowing their chances of survival are fading. The title refers to the letters many soldiers write to their families before the battle begins. These messages reveal the humanity behind the uniforms. Each man remembers the life he left behind and wonders whether his sacrifice will be understood. When the invasion finally arrives, the island becomes a storm of artillery smoke and flame. Yet even during the chaos, moments of compassion appear between enemies who recognize each other as fellow human beings. Letters from Iwo Jima stands as one of the most thoughtful war films ever made. It shows that history looks very different depending on which side of the battlefield tells the story. 1917. 2019. During the First World War, the front lines stretched across Europe like a scar across the earth. 1917 places the viewer directly inside that world through a remarkable cinematic approach that appears to unfold in one continuous shot. The story begins when two young British soldiers receive a dangerous assignment. A German retreat has created confusion along the battlefield. Intelligence reveals that a British battalion is about to walk into a deadly trap. The only way to stop the attack is to deliver a message across enemy territory. Blake and Schofield must cross abandoned trenches, shattered villages, and open farmland before the assault begins. Every step exposes them to unseen dangers. Snipers patrol ruined buildings while enemy patrols move through the countryside searching for intruders. Director Sam Mendes designed the film to feel like a single, unbroken journey. The camera follows the soldiers through mud darkness and burning ruins without obvious cuts. This technique pulls the audience into the urgency of the mission. The emotional weight of the film grows as the journey continues. The soldiers encounter civilians lost in the chaos of war and comrades who may not survive long enough to see victory. Each obstacle reminds them that time is running out. 1917 does not rely on massive battle scenes to create tension. Instead, it shows how one small mission can carry enormous consequences, or the fate of hundreds of soldiers depends on whether two men can reach their destination before dawn. The film closes with a quiet moment of reflection. War is revealed not only through explosions, but through the endurance of those who carry its burdens. Military history is not just about weapons and victories. It is about people who faced impossible choices in moments that shaped the world. If these films remind us of anything, it is that the past still echoes through every battlefield story waiting to be remembered.